And top of mind is what's happening in the aviation sector. Now, we understand that the aviation minister, Naidu, is talking about the ministry keeping an eye on these hoax bomb threats. And there have been quite a few in recent times. The Mumbai police already has arrested a minor who's been accused of threatening at least 3 airlines with hoax calls. Let's find out what action has been taken already and what the government plans to do regarding the growing number of hoax calls, these bomb threats that are coming through and disturbing the entire paraphernalia when it comes to the aviation sector. My colleague Samir is joining us from Delhi to bring us up to speed with all the developments in the capital. Samir, what have you heard?
The government is deeply concerned with the series of bomb threats that the Indian airlines have been receiving in the recent past, and the same is reflected through Naidu, the aviation minister's official statement. He mentioned that yes, the government is concerned, and that is the reason that he chaired a very important high-level meeting on 14th of October with the stakeholders that included officials from CISF, BCAS, Ministry, and DGCA. And government is actually looking and hearing from airlines that what all remedies could be taken. But if you see, today itself, Mumbai police has arrested a minor who has sent such a bomb threat on social media and which disrupted the flight operation of 3 different airlines. Even in Delhi, 6 cases have been registered by Delhi police. Largely, if you see, there has been more than 12 flights which has been disrupted because of such bomb threats, which lately has been found, Hoax calls, which lately has been found that these are completely false security alarm, and this disrupted the flight operations and even causing a great discomfort to passengers and also a great loss, a revenue loss to the airlines. And that is the reason that the government has said that they are looking into all the aspects so as to ensure that these cases are minimized, and also the security operations, the safety aspect is upheld. So what we are also picking up from our sources that another high-level meeting is likely to take place on Thursday, and government may announce some big steps in coming days.
Samir, thanks very much for filling us in. We will keep tracking what the government does, but let's bring in aviation expert Jitender Bhargava. He's joining us on this edition of Business at 9. Great to have you with us, sir. You know, these 12 threats, all hoax calls, and all of them over the last 3 days, Mr. Bhargava, what do you put it down to? Why are we seeing a sudden spurt?
It's a very unfortunate thing that the hoax calls have resulted in almost 16 flights being disrupted, diverted, delayed, etc. And the government has acted on day 3 of it by holding meetings and putting it in public domain that a juvenile under 18 individual from Rajnathgaon in Chhattisgarh has been arrested by the Mumbai police. Investigations are on and an FIR has been filed in Delhi. I would have ideally liked the government of India to have come in yesterday and to have come in to stop this kind of a thing. You see, it sends a very, very bad message that as a country which is high on IT and technology, social media messages being sent on hoax messages, whether on a phone or on a social media, etc., we are not able to track the culprit. Whatever it be, our agencies got to be swift and acting on it. 3 days and so many diversions because of hoax calls sends a very bad message globally too. Besides causing inconvenience to passengers, financial loss to the airlines, and what is more important is that disruption that takes place.
Indeed.
So I would be very, very looking forward to it, that following government having escalated the issue, NIA having been involved, other investigating agencies have been involved, that perhaps in the next 24 hours, there will be some positive outcome. And this hoax call, pranksters playing havoc with our airline industry comes to an end. And the faster it does, the better it is.
Mr. Bhargav, but tell us exactly, typically how an airline and the authority is involved. How do they deal with a bomb threat? Are we doing this right? Is there a playbook really that we follow, which is international global standards? Is that something that happens?
You know, it's a standard operating procedure that if you get any kind of a message, you should land at the nearest airport, like the Chicago flight Air India did at an unknown Canadian airport, so that you don't take a chance there are a lot of people who have been talking about that the standing operating procedures need to be improved, updated, etc. But the reality is, no airline would take a risk of continuing to operate a flight if it has received a call that there is a bomb or something to that effect on board the aircraft. The SOP is very clear: land at the nearest airport. Now, that is what all airlines across the industry, if you look at it, there's Air India involved, Akasa Airline, Indigo planes, SpiceJet is involved, Air India Express involved. Everybody has followed the same thing. What does it indicate? That the SOP is common to all airlines and it is safety driven. So the only thing that one can look at, and I can give you an example, is the only airline in the world which does not land after receiving a message is the Israeli airline El Al. They are so confident of their security checks that they continue to fly, but other airlines, and you would agree with me, that either our work culture, passenger behavior, airline SOPs are not as stringent as Israeli airline follows.
So maybe not that stringent, but certainly air travel has changed. And like you pointed out, there are these delays, these disruptions that are caused by these hoax calls, these bomb threats. And you did mention the financial drain that this would be. How much does it really cost the airlines when you have situations like these?
You know, when you look at safety, no airline calculates the financial loss of it, because to them, the paramount thing is safety of passengers, safety of machines, and the airline image that gets impacted in the event of any wrong thing happening. So when you look at it, but the reality is, yes, when a flight gets diverted, there's a cost of diversion. There's a cost of putting the passengers in hotels if the delay is a prolonged one to take off. And then the aircraft has a cascading effect on the flight schedule because it is not available for either the return flight or subsequent flight that it has to operate. So the costs are phenomenal. There's no denying, besides the fuel cost that you look at it. So when we look at the, say, the local domestic operations being disrupted today, when they got a hoax call, you have to go through it. You can't really do it. The only thing, the preventive measures, number one, the hoax calls must be brought to an end. People who are making these prank calls must be dealt with very, very sternly. Airline suggestion of only putting them on the no-fly list is really no solution to it. There should be much harsher punishment. And Air India had in fact hinted that we would like to recover the cost from the people who have made the flight to divert.
Air India has said that.
We need very stern action.
Is that something that is implementable? We do need stronger deterrence under law, Mr. Bhargava, a stronger regulatory framework. Just putting the accused on a no-fly zone, like you're saying, may not suffice. And now that Air India is saying that the perpetrators of such threats, if they are found guilty, the airline is going to hold them accountable for the disruption and inconvenience caused to passengers and sue them to recover damages. Do you see that possibility emerge?
You know, that is what would be needed, to tell you very frankly, because otherwise these pranksters can only come and will make these calls. Like, for example, we are told that this juvenile person from Rajnathgaon had done it more as a game kind of a thing, to take revenge from a friend, to do those kind of things, whether it's a story or a reality. But let's also not overlook the fact, when in the past 2 years, there have been prank calls to the airlines, they have got away with it rather easily on the kind of plea that it's a case of mental imbalance, he's lost his senses, and all those kind of things, and we let him off. In my opinion, whether they're in the senses or not, if they've caused harm to the airline, disrupted the flight schedule, caused inconvenience to passengers, they must be made to pay for it.
Bhargav, I'm reminded of the multiple hijackings that took place in the United States in the 60s and the 70s, and that changed the nature of air travel, as it were. A lot has happened since then, but you did mention the digital age. How has air travel changed in the digital age? We are seeing the negative impact of the growth of technology, but do tell us how really it has changed in recent times.
You know, don't look at this, that the hijacking stopped because of the action taken in the United States. Don't forget that even India had hijackings in the 70s and 80s and even 1999. The fact is there are SOPs, there are safety norms followed by airline industry, security norms by CISF and other related agencies at the airport. But if they have to only gain once, but as I said earlier, for the hoax calls that we have, whether it's hoax call or it is a meaningful call, the airline is supposed to ground its aircraft at the nearest airport. And then you subject the passengers and the baggages and the aircraft to a very, very deep security checks.
Yes.
And only then are you allowed to continue here. So perhaps the solution lies in being stern, in dealing with people in a manner that it acts as a very strong deterrent, and only then will this thing come to an end. If we allow and say chalta hai attitude, then of course the airline will continue to bear the brunt. It's
Also,
not in the
aviation
airline domain
sector
to check all this. It's basically in the security agencies
Yes.
and the government policies that come in that we shall not tolerate any nonsense of this kind, irrespective of what alibis are being offered for
Yes.
making a phone call. They shall not be spared.
Mr. Bhargav,
and if you send
also,
this kind of a
Mr.
stern
Bhargav,
message, perhaps it will come to an end.
also bearing the brunt is the aviation sector, Mr. Bhargav, at a time that we're looking at widening up our skies for greater investments in the sector. So as far as how India tackles it is going to reflect on the kind of investments that the sector draws. How much of an impact do you see over there with incidents like these growing?
Absolutely, but the reality also needs to be kept in mind. The India is on a growth mode. Number of airports are going up, number of aircraft with the carriers are going up, and it will continue to grow. But the safety record of Indian carriers has been good. Barring this last 3 days, the concerted action or individual action of making a call to the airline and making them subject of a hijack or a bomb impact kind of a thing. As I said earlier, the solution lies in deterrent action. Make an example of people who have made the call this time, and nobody will dare do that again.
Right. Well, we'll see exactly how the government acts on this. It's going to be very keenly watched, considering that we've had multiple incidents in a very short span of time. So calibrated action will not do. Now, the government will have to devise that framework and will have to come out strong in terms of the kind of laws that are going to govern incidents like these. Mr. Bhargav, it's always a pleasure getting in your perspective. Thank you very much for joining in on this discussion on Business at 9.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.